99% of the world doesn't understand it. They think it's a fad. They think it's a bubble. They think it's a rally. They think it's a strange thing. And so if there was ever a thing that needed to be educated, or there's ever an idea that needed to be introduced to society, and if it was ever good for people to learn a new thing, I would say that this year, this thing is the single most important thing of our lifetime. And so it's a worthwhile pursuit to explain to the world what Bitcoin is, what an open monetary network is, what a digital monetary asset is, why it's good for the human race, how it's going to change their lives, and why it would be irrational and tragic for them to dismiss it as another speculative fervor. I think it's pretty clear at this point that the way that the world is going to evolve, we're going to have one layer, which we call the currency layer, and it's going to be dollars or euros or the fiat currency of every legitimate, effective government on the planet. And there's going to be an underlying layer, a store of value layer called the asset layer. And that's either going to be pure base layer money, which is what Bitcoin is, or it's going to be a hybrid mixture of like an investment in commercial real estate or a stock that the people feel has a portion of asset in it and a portion of speculation in it. So looking at 8 billion people on the planet, and the killer application is a mobile wallet. There'll be 1,000 of them downloaded on a mobile device. And that mobile wallet's going to have a fiat currency layer and a payment rail that moves probably dollars or the equivalent. And then underlying, there's got to be a savings account / asset layer. And that's going to emerge as Bitcoin. Currencies in the weakest 50 countries in the world, they're all collapsing. And what everybody wants is they want to do their medium of exchange in dollars. And so the US dollar is actually going to spread on that Bitcoin base layer to Nigeria, Venezuela, all of Africa, half if not most of South America, all through Asia. Because if the government can't maintain a currency which is strong enough to be effectively pegged to the dollar, then it's going to lose control of the currency. If you're interested in doing the best thing for the world, what you want to do is deploy this open monetary wallet with the Bitcoin as the base layer asset protocol, and then with a stable coin rail, which is probably the US dollar, because if you're going to go to a currency other than your local currency, you might as well just go right to the one that's 90% of the world. What we're seeing is Bitcoin as an open monetary protocol is making it possible for 100,000 Bitcoin banks to spin up in cyberspace. They're all going to settle with each other on the Bitcoin protocol. They're all going to do payment, billions of transactions and payments and other trust transactions on Lightning rails or other proprietary rails. And this is the way that the best technology spreads to all 8 billion people. I think that as regulatory clarity develops, that'll be really good for the industry. I think there's a lot of inefficiency and wasted energy due to the uncertainty of the regulatory environment. My view on regulation is the same as my view on Bitcoin core development. We should move forward progressively, yet carefully. In a monetary system, if you have a monetary system, you need two things. You need a monetary asset, which is fixed, closed asset if it's going to be mathematically proper. And then you need a monetary network to move the asset around, to change the ownership of the asset. We look at all the other monetary systems. So we try gold. The problem with gold is it's got a 2.5% leak per year in it, which means it's got a half-life of 30 years, which means the energy is bleeding out of the system constantly. And there's a big difference between a half-life of 30 years and a half-life of infinity. Like in one case, you live forever, right? 1,000,000 years. And the other case, it goes for 30 feet. Why is Bitcoin special? Because it's the first effective worldwide asset network. You can build a crypto asset network that is not thermodynamically sound. If, Dogecoin has 100 billion Doge, right? And you keep adding it. So if I keep adding more tokens, that's not sound. The protocol could be wrong. And on the other hand, in the absence of Bitcoin, people chase to another asset network. Stocks aren't closed systems, nor is debt, right? If you buy up all the debt of New York City and you drive the price to infinity and you tell all your friends on Reddit to buy all the New York City debt, the mayor of New York might just go ahead and issue another $20 billion worth of debt. Just like people say, oh, GameStop, they should issue stock. Well, this is a news flash. Don't short a system which isn't the closed system. And that means the problem is real estate. You can, if you're buying apartments in Manhattan, they can build another building next to you and put more apartments on the market. You know, with debt, the government can, if you buy up all the government debt, they can issue more debt. And that doesn't work for you. And so we got $500 trillion worth of assets that are being used as a store of value. They're all defective. The way that you know people understand Bitcoin is they think it's a speculation. Sorry, they don't understand. If they don't understand it or they're afraid of it, they think it's a speculation and it's an investment, and they're thinking Bitcoin versus silver versus gold versus GameStop versus Tesla. That's what they're thinking. When they understand it, they say, it's just a conversion from a soft asset or an analog asset to a digital asset. So how should an individual think of it? Well, if you're going to make $100,000 a year for the next decade, and if the US dollar is going to weaken at 15% a year, you should discount your cash flows by 15% next year, by 30% the next year, by 15 and 15 cubed, right, the next year, and by 15% to the 10th power, the 10th year. It isn't a hard sequence to figure out, right? Your purchasing power is going exponentially to zero. This is the same math you would do for an individual dentist or an engineer or a small business or a large business. Once you figure that out, then the question is, what are the consequences of me continuing to work in the US dollar? The answer is you have to basically grow your salary faster than the rate at which the currency collapses. So if you can raise your salary 15% a year, every year forever, then you'll have the same amount of money. The other strategy is you convert your existing assets. Should be fortunate. If you are fortunate enough to have assets invested in bonds, commercial real estate, or equities that are valued on cash flows or sitting as cash in a bank, you convert that into the hard asset, which is Bitcoin, as much as you dare. Some people say 5%, some people say more. I've done 400%. My view is first I convert all my stuff, then I borrow money, then I convert that. But everybody makes the decision as to how invested they want to be in the digital asset universe versus the analog asset. After you decide what portion of your existing assets you should convert, you can decide if you want to forward finance your cash flows. And if you can, and maybe you do, I did, but then you decide you want to finance your other assets. Like you have a house, you have $1 million house, you can borrow $800,000 of it. Maybe you can borrow an $800,000 home equity line at 2.5% interest. Well, if I borrow $800,000, pay 2.5% interest, invested in Bitcoin, paying 250% interest, it's a 247% arbitrage, right? I need something that's not going to move in the universe. What's the most stable thing in the economic universe today? And the answer is Bitcoin. As the liquidity of Bitcoin grows, as it goes from a billion a day to 2 billion a day to 4 billion a day to 8 billion a day to $16 billion a day to 32 billion a day, you'll be able to get more leverage on that fulcrum, and you can literally move the world.